Joanna Powell received her BFA from the University of North Texas in 2008 and her master's degree from the University of Colorado, her MFA, I should say, from the University of Colorado at Boulder in 2012. Currently, she's a second-year long-term Wingate fellow. Goodness gracious, I'm so sorry. Wingate Fellow at the Archie Bray Foundation for Ceramic Arts. Please welcome Joanna Powell.
Jane saying feller made me feel better all of a sudden. I was like, okay, it's going to be fabulous. Okay, let's do this. Hey, thanks for coming. It's really full and nice. Okay. My heart's racing. I shouldn't admit that. First, well, I'd like to thank a few people. For the reason that I'm here, there's been tons of people that have believed in me and pushed me. My undergraduate professors at University of North Texas, Elmer Taylor and Jerry Austin, taught me everything about pots. And then I went on to Boulder and Jeannie Quinn, Kim Dickey, and Scott Chamberlain. They really pushed me and made me make these things that I was afraid of, And so, yeah. And I want to thank my parents. They have been behind me to the bitter end, And my dad was like, well, don't work for the government and, do something that should be good. I don't know, be a doctor. But now I'm an artist, so. But, lastly, I'd like to thank the Archie Bray because being at that place has helped me. It's such a supportive place. I don't know. It's like no other, and there's magic in the dirt. It's the best place ever. The staff is incredible. Thanks Steve, Rachel, Noreen in the office. Everybody's excellent. Okay, let's start this. First off, I'd like to start off with a quote I think about often from Jessica Stockholder. For me, beauty is a struggle, a stretching of what's comfortable aesthetically. Beauty is integral to my work. It's in no way separate. I feel that beauty is in the generosity of material, the awkward and the irregular. Let's see. Quick, immediate responses are what I'm interested in. I like the idea of things being a little bit uncomfortable. I'm usually a little bit uncomfortable all the time. And my practice is about how I can find some sort of truth through making. For me, what is beautiful causes mental and physical sensations, be they good or bad. It can be repulsive. It can be, I don't know. But, yeah, I feel in the perfect there's a finalization that destroys a work's ability to live. It's through my touch. My touch leaves a visual record in which I make objects. I try not to think too much while I'm in the studio so I can give attention to the moments and surrender to the objects. And I let them, through a series of accidents, I feel like the work is born. Look at this. I'm a little bit forward. That's my hair. I save all my hair. Currently, I live and work in Helena, Montana. It's one of the most beautiful and mystifying places I have ever been. And I've always loved to go on adventures. When I got my license, I would drive around Dallas with no plan, and I don't even know how to read a map really still. It's really terrible. I didn't have a phone till I was 23, so I was always lost. I would drive around and then find my way home just through landmarks, and I still do that. When I'm driving around, I have to notice everything. I don't know, and like all artists, I wake up and have the courage to start from nothing each day. I go into the studio and explore the unknown, although it never ceases after I finish a piece that I ask myself, can I do this again? Will it ever be good again? I'm constantly having to say to myself, trust yourself. I have this thing on my studio and it says, trust yourself. And I constantly look at that. I'm like, okay, trust myself. When working in the studio, language leaves me and an abbreviated way of thinking enters. I usually can't communicate very well when I'm in the studio. I think I go off into another place and language leaves me. I think about all the kinds of things, from how many miles it is until the sky ends, how cold space would feel to like what my parents are doing at the time, or like what it would smell like in another country. All of these wonderings go into the work. As I've moved farther away from home, I have an ache in my body about returning. I get nostalgic about where I grew up with and and the way things were. Going back and visiting, I know it's all changed, and everything, including myself, is just getting older. I think about my dad a lot in the studio. He's the champion of impossible ideas, and he's always encouraged me. I think as a kid I used to drag around this big piece of wood, and I thought it was a dinosaur bone. I was totally convinced. And he would say, like, you know, come on, Joanna, we're fixing to go to the store, get your dinosaur bone. And so I would do that. And to this day, we still engage in this, like, fiction. We talk fiction to each other. Like, whenever we're on the phone, it's just like, he'll tell me little stories like, that today was like a hot dog, like a roasting a hot dog in a tornado or whatever. And I'm like, I talk about a piece I made for my dad, and this piece I made for my mom. It's called Have Your Best Face Forward, and it's about, you know, I would watch her she's like, you know, she's always like, I'm putting on my war paint. Like, that's kind of how my mom has been. And so I remember her trash can was full of these lipstick blots, and, you know, it's lipstick, powder, repeat, blot. And that was mainly the only thing in her trash can, and I thought about the beauty of this repetition, and the memory that holds for me is just a nice object. This piece is entitled Sugar Baby, Take Him, These Ants Are Gonna Sting Me Sure as the World. It's for my dad. He didn't talk till he was 4 years old. He was extremely dyslexic, and his dad would call his mom Sugar Baby, and they would refer to him as him. So he just like blurted this sentence out. And this piece is about pleasure and endurance, and the meditation that happens through repetition and the ability to persevere when struggling. This picture is from the State Fair of Texas. They have a big haul of all these objects that people submit, like from their collections and dioramas. There are all these like pieces of, it's called a horseshoe because it's made out of a high heel, and I thought it was hilarious. And there were all these objects made out of shoes, and I was like, and they, you know, have like blue ribbons. This one didn't have an award, but I thought it was the best, you know. It was awesome. And yeah, my work just comes from living in the world and just noticing things. Much of it's about contradiction simply because that's the way I am. You know, I don't know how to be any way otherwise, you know? It's just that it. In this piece titled First Impressions Are the Worst, it's just the reality. When I meet somebody, it's always weird or whatever, and I try my best. You know, I think I try to hold it together, but you know, I worry about if I've got something in my teeth, or if I'm really, I think as you get older, your teeth hold more junk or whatever. I don't know. So I'm very like conscious now. And so, you know, we're always pretending, like we're always posturing as people, trying to, you know, avoid this embarrassment. So this piece is from the cloisters. It's like a medieval piece, and she was a spy, and she got shot by a firing squad, but she was beautiful. Mata Hari is her name, and I just admire her. Okay. Let's see. And in this piece, in the photograph, the apple in the mouth, it acts as a cork or an offering for all the apologies I'll have to make in the end for things that occur in the moment. With this said, I'm a really sentimental person, and I feel things to my bones. The history of art has always been really important for me. And when I was little, if I was medium, I was big enough to go places by myself. I'd ask my mom to go drop me off at the art museum, and I'd go wander around for hours. And Matisse, Rousseau, and Gauguin, and Richard Tuttle is my art hero. They became like my best friends. Their use of color and fantasy captured me, and I just couldn't stay away. In terms of objects, I'm really attracted to like folk pottery, Etruscan pottery, pre-Columbian pottery, and Meissen and Sèvres porcelain, just that beautiful pristineness. I love it. These categories are polar opposites. And in a nutshell, I guess I'd describe my work as like if Sèvres porcelain and pre-Columbian pottery had a baby. I use installation in an effort to see how I can recontextualize function. In a simple, complicated truth, I was trying to flatten out the space so I could better understand it, like so I could like taste it. I don't know, it's like this, I don't know, I'm a tactile person. I painted a line where the floor meets the wall higher than normal, hoping to tilt the space so that it would flatten out the composition. I think it's sort of made as an ode to David Hockney in a way. The objects in the composition are odd and specific and clearly belong to one person. I'm a really superstitious person. I believe that objects hold energy and they can convey that energy. And so I feel like all the objects in this arrangement act as talismans for the owner. And they're arranged ultimately to tell a story about painting. The paintings and objects over time have become married. There's like in no way separate, and they feed off each other to tell a very specific story. I love painting for its immediacy and how a feeling is recorded in a brushstroke. In the same way, clay does that for me. Like everybody knows, I loved it. Like the smell of clay is just like, oh my God, I love you. And so it's clay has a similar gesture that I adore. They make a great couple for me. I experience getting lost and feeling lost in the studio on the daily. With this being said, I also spend a lot of energy trying to make sense of all this stuff that I'm making. I don't know, I realized a long time ago that I just have to let go and let it happen and pay attention to all these things that are swirling around in my studio. French poet and artist Jean Cocteau's house fascinates me. That's on the top is his house. And it wasn't until about several years ago I realized the parallel between that view of his living room and then the view out my parents' patio window in Dallas, Texas, where I grew up. They're completely different yet the same. There's like a hose dangling down. That's like my dad he puts a sprinkler on the roof and to cool the house off in the summer, but it just looks so, there's all this just stuff. There's so much stuff at my parents' house. It's this place I fantasize about going. One of those places I wonder how it smells and feels. During the summer, every summer I worked as a cashier at a public pool, and every summer my pre-pool opening fantasy remained the same. I would lay in the pool, on a float, and close my eyes and feel the hot kind of breeze go over my skin, and I would imagine I was in the south of France. I was like, I'm in the south of France, this is great, I'm getting a tan, And I think about this often, and with my work, I go to these imagined places. Much of my work exists within the idea of the still life. I enjoy its ability to remind us of our desires and our mortality. I'm not that old, but you start thinking about dying once you pass out of your 20s, I think. You start realizing it's a possibility, I don't know. And so I think a lot about my existence and the existence of human beings. Yeah. There's a haunting quietness in still life that I think about in my own work. I think a lot about Dutch still life. Still life in the northern Netherlands during the early 1600s consisted of flower bouquets from all the flowers from all over the place blooming at the same time. I think that's pretty romantic. It's like bringing this impossible beauty together. I think about that a lot, impossible beauty. And I think about this was thinking about a meeting in a garden, a very long meeting. Just simple things like that. More still life. It's pretty beautiful, you know. I'm fascinated by just the later renderings, too, of still life, you know, where just like tons of objects, like these very romantic objects, all like moody lit, you know, sort of in their ultimate, utmost beauty, and how they have a decorative function that really appeals to me, and I think about this in the way I use objects to tell very short stories. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't think I'll ever know where I'm going. I'll continue my journey as an artist in this life, asking questions, gathering facts, and telling my story. Stay curious and keep wondering. That's what I recommend. That's the only way to live. And I was sitting in front of this door, and I got up, and I was like, oh, okay, please don't block this door, it's an exit. So I figured it's appropriate. All right, thank you.